people. What is up? Welcome back to the It's Not About Us podcast. Today, I have Cathy with me, and I'm so excited. And we tried to do this a month ago.
Yeah.
And, well, that didn't work out.
Nope.
And then my equipment stopped working. And so that really didn't work out. And, well, here we are now.
God's timing.
God's timing. I have a question for you before we start.
Okay.
What is your favorite scripture or passage right now, and why?
My favorite one that God has been bombarding me with is Isaiah 43:2.
Ooh.
And it has to deal, I'm sure, with a lot of stuff that's going on in my life. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. Another version says, the hard trials that come will not hurt you.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah.
The hard
the second one's Good News Translation, but yeah.
Oh, wow, it won't hurt you. Kind of feels like it hurts sometimes.
It
but
does
okay.
feel like it hurts.
I'm kind of like, are you? This is pain. This is what pain feels like, don't you know? Oh, that's cool. So is that something that you've kind of been digging into yourself, or is God just kind of like popping it at you?
He's kind of thrown it at me as I've been in this season of chaos and busy and a lot of stress that I didn't expect to come at me. Yeah. You and I have known each other for about 10 years now. Has it only been 10?
I know. Doesn't it feel like so much longer, greater years?
Well, I just remember you like licking me and stealing my phone every VBS, and
that's how I show my affection. I don't know what to tell you.
Stealing my coffee.
Exactly. Yeah, I just had like my 10-year like friend anniversary with Kim, and then I was like, oh, I've known her mom the same amount of time. Yeah. It was like a cool like 10-year anniversary. Yeah, and you
for anybody that doesn't know, I'm the mom of Kim Black or Voss.
Wow, maiden name throwback.
Well, no.
Yeah, and you've just kind of been a part of my life for like 10 years, and you've watched me grow up. I'm sorry.
It's fine. You were just one of the crew.
I was. I just kind of came along with the package.
Yep. You were one of the girls.
I was. But yeah, it's been good. I've always been like super thankful for you guys, and just you've always been kind of a safe place for me.
Thank you.
2022 has kind of been putting you through the ringer.
Oh yeah. It did not start out like I thought it would start out.
No. And so what kind of stuff's been going on? What kind of crazy?
On New Year's Eve day, I was in Lafayette with my daughter, and we were out for my husband's birthday, and I get a FaceTime call from my mom. And I answer the call, and she was very hard to understand, but I could see, she was on the floor, something was wrong, she had fallen, she couldn't feel her right side. My other daughter came and picked her up and drove her to Lafayette, and we met her there at the hospital, and within minutes they called a stroke alert.
Yep.
And so, I spent New Year's Eve in the ER, and we had hospitalization for her and then rehab for her, and she's home now, but we still got some struggles that we're dealing with.
Right.
And, it was challenging, that aspect.
Right.
About a week after her stroke, while she was still in the hospital, I don't know if it was a week, my other daughter went in for a surgery, and they were going to remove her gallbladder. She had a gallbladder attack, and she's had them off and on, and she's had so many like abdominal surgeries that I was afraid this wouldn't go well.
Right.
And they couldn't do it the way they wanted. They wanted to do it laparoscopically, and they couldn't. And so then she spent several days in the hospital recovering from that, and then from a failed surgery, basically. And then from being in the hospital, she ended up with a wound on her foot. In 2 months, she's had 4 surgeries while my mom's been recovering from her stroke.
Oof. Oh, man.
Yeah, so she's still recovering, but they finally did get the gallbladder out. So
Heck yeah, they did.
She's got a wound on her foot that got worse, and she can't, at the moment, walk on it at all.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
any weight at all.
Nope. So. Yeah, that's not really the way you kind of want to ring in the new year.
No, it's not, I was like, okay, New Year's, and we just go on as we had been going on, where God was taking us, and then, hey, let's throw a wrench in all the works.
Right, like all of it.
All of it.
Not just one little area, like literally every
everything.
little aspect of your life has been kind of just like,
Yeah, it was a rough couple of months, and
Yeah.
it's still busy. It's still a lot of busy.
A lot of go.
Yeah, a lot of, trying to help and trying to be there and trying to do the running and get to doctor's appointments and things like that. But it's a different kind of stress now because it's not a, is this person going to recover type of stress? And nobody's at the moment in the hospital. Please, Jesus.
Knock on this wood table.
But yeah, so it's a different kind of stress now. It's still busier than I am comfortable with. But it's, it is what it is, and I just keep going with it.
Right. And like obviously it's a lot easier kind of now to talk about it.
Yeah.
Since it was
a month ago, I was still kind of a mess, so I'm kind of
right.
glad it
And
got
so
delayed.
I was gonna kind of see if we could kind of go in. What was that like for you in the moment, in midst of?
I was teaching last night, and there was a question. I was teaching Wednesday night Bible study, and there was a question that asked about when you're in the midst of suffering or trials, and you look around and you see everybody else, and they're not. What does that feel like? And I've been in that position a few times, and it's surreal because it kind of catches you off guard. Your thoughts and your mind and everything's consumed with what's going on. Yep. And then you like go to the grocery store and people are just going about their normal lives, and you're like, do you understand what I'm going through? But in a way, it was also, when I get a chance to be in a normal world for 5 seconds, it'd be like, okay, life goes on, and I'll get through it. You know, it's one of those things where I didn't get angry that I had to go through it. It was more along the lines of, I was just stressed. Could I do enough? Could I be enough? Yeah. Was I, able to handle it? Yeah. But it got to me. It got to me pretty hardcore. And it got to me even while I was fighting it to not get to me. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that became a big part of it for a few weeks. I just wasn't functioning well. I ended up getting sick from just the constant going, the constant weight and worry and stress and trying to, I ended up sick for probably about a week, in a way that's a way of me being forced to take it easy. And when I didn't want to take it easy because there was other stuff going on, but I had to. Right. You
I have a list of 100 things to do. I do not have time to be sick.
And I can't get out of bed.
Exactly. Like I don't have a choice now. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah. So, and that happened. And then there was the service that we were at in Monon.
We were in Monon. Good old Monon.
Yes. Little Monon with this really cool church. But yeah, we were at a revival service. We have these services once a month, the Windsor Revival that we've been doing. And we were at this service, and I wasn't going to go. My husband, throughout all of this, my husband, who works for the state, and we had all this weather, he was out plowing snow and clearing roads, and he ended up getting called in. And so I wasn't going to go. I was tired. The 14-year-old didn't want to go. And I just felt like God said, no, you're going to go. And I said, fine, I'll go. I need the time with you. Yeah. Because as much as you're quiet and you're spending time with God when you're sick, you're still not, it's not the same as, I hadn't been really at church in a week or so because I had been sick. And everything. Right. And so I went not expecting, It
was one of those, okay, I showed up. Yeah. Here you go.
I'm here for God and to spend some time and worship with Him. Yeah, I knew the worship would be good.
Right. It was.
Anytime we can get a bunch of musicians together, it's usually gonna, especially the ones we've got, that show up at Windsor Revival. Oh yeah, there's some good musicians, and I was like, okay, I need some good worship. I need to just spend some time with Jesus and pray, and listen to a good sermon, and that's just,
get my cup full, and I'm gonna go on my way.
And then I needed to that's part of refreshing myself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I've been fighting to do that anyway. All these driving to the hospitals and driving to the nursing home, and it's long drives, 45 minutes each way, every several times a week. And I'd be cranking the worship music, and and I still was just worn out. I've been a Christian for a while, so you don't expect that you're basing your relationship with Jesus on circumstances. Right. But circumstances are still there.
And it affects everything. It really does.
It does. It gets to you. And so I went to the service expecting, just to have a sweet time with the Lord. Yeah. That's, okay, time with Jesus. And, see some people that I hadn't been able to see much of because I'd been sick. And instead, I kind of was confronted with the fact that all that I had been through had got to me. And it was not necessarily it didn't start out as God confronting me. It was people that knew me that said, that came up to me and said, no, this has got to go.
Yeah.
The spirit that's on you right now has got to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't even know that it had gotten to me that bad.
That deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I'm just treading water trying to keep my head afloat.
Right. This is, you're in survival mode. You're trying to get everything done. You're trying to keep yourself afloat, let alone your family afloat and your kids and everything else. You're not really worried about what's in here.
Yep.
You're doing everything and taking care of everything that's out here first.
Yeah. I was trying.
Yeah.
I was determined I would, get my time with God.
I'm not going to drown.
The best as I could. And
Yeah.
the best that I could while driving and while, sitting in the hospital rooms. I would, have my devotions open or whatever. But your mind gets so cluttered with everything going on, and you're trying to, manipulate everything in your head to how you can make it all work for everybody. And, it was an easy way for just this heaviness and this spirit of, this burden that it wasn't mine to carry to be on me. And and so when my pastor walked up to me and said, that has to go. And at first I was like, what are you talking about?
What has to go?
And he's like, you have lost your joy. And I'm thinking, do you know what I'm going through? What do you mean joy
I
right
would
now?
I would have snapped. I would have been like, let me give you a list of everything wrong right now.
and that's when I was kind of like, you're right, I'm not joyful. I'm just trying to make it through.
Yep.
And
I'm just surviving at this point.
I didn't even realize at that point how much my joy was depending, the joy of the Lord was depending on what I was going through.
Wow, yeah.
Because, when you're in the midst of it, it's kind of tough to see. A couple weeks later, I was at a conference, and my daughter was with me, my daughter, oldest, Kim. And we're sitting there and we're listening to these sermons from these great fiery, pastors and preachers, and they're talking about, wanting the fire of God. And we both just kind of looked at each other at one point, and we're like, but do you know what the fire contains? Because, yes, you want the presence of God and the glory of God and the but then there comes that moment when you realize that sometimes the fire of God comes during the hardest times.
Fire burns.
Fire, think about being in the midst of a fire. Can you see clearly? No, you can't even breathe clearly.
Right.
And, you're choking on the fire.
Yeah.
And yet, like the verse, that he gave me, he's still walking with me through it all.
Ooh, yeah.
And so this fire was, I'm sitting there thinking, do you understand that the fire is going to burn up all the things in your life?
Yep.
Your idols are going to melt. The things
the ones that you don't even know are idols.
Right.
Yep.
Your idols are going to melt. The things that you think you dealt with, they're going to come back on you.
Yep.
And you're going to have to deal with it at a deeper level.
Yeah.
And that fire, the fire of God, is not meant to just spur you into whatever he's got planned for you or whatever. The fire of God is meant to take away all the impurities.
Yeah.
And that fire doesn't always come with just, a hard time. Sometimes it comes with the whole world feeling like it's caving in, and you're just trying to juggle it all.
Right. You're trying to get out of the house that's on fire, essentially.
Right. You're just trying to make sure that nobody else burns up while you're just, making sure. And you don't even realize you're necessarily in a fire. You're just, I'm sitting here thinking, it's my mom in the fire. She's had the stroke. And it's my daughter who's had 4 surgeries that's in the fire. And they are.
Yeah.
But, while I'm helping all of them,
there's a fire.
Different fire was being dealt with that I hadn't been dealing with it, because obviously I didn't deal with it. I was immediately within weeks sick.
Right.
And if you don't deal with it, God's going to find a way to make you.
Yeah.
Getting the joy back, because without joy there isn't strength, meant dealing with what God was showing me in the fire. You don't think, when you've been walked with Jesus for a while, that all the the circumstances are basing your have anything to do with your relationship with God. And
right.
Obviously, as a new Christian, I did that a lot.
Oh yeah.
But when you
that's
walk
what
through
that roller coaster up and down
right.
thing,
when you walk through a while, you don't think, my relationship with Jesus, my joy is going to be circumstantial. You think it's still there. I still love him.
Right. Exactly. I'm still following. I'm still saying yes.
Yeah. And yet I'd lost that joy.
Yeah.
And not just my pastor, but another pastor friend, my brother, and then, and you guys surrounded me. You weren't going to let me leave there.
No, we were literally like, we're not leaving. We don't even care if anybody else leaves.
Yeah.
They can all go. We're not leaving until this is dealt with.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to drag you with us. We're going to do this.
And I can't say it was 100% better by the end of the night.
No, but there was a shift.
Yeah, there's a shift. I have to sort things out in my mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes, when God does something, it usually takes me a couple days to sort it out.
Yeah, because you're kind of like, okay, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
And then how do I carry that on?
Right. Oh, yeah. And for me, the joy meant, as silly as it sounds, I lost the spunk and the oh yeah, well, let me pick on you a while type thing. I just didn't have it in me. And, that kind of relationship, the ones that I'm closest to, I know I can pick on a little bit or whatever. And when I couldn't do that, that's when I realized, okay, so they are seeing that something is not right because I'm not doing how I usually am or acting the way I usually do or, yes, I didn't think at the time my relationship had changed with God. I was holding on.
Right.
While trying to do it all.
Right. And especially when stuff like that happens, you kind of end up hanging on for dear life.
Yeah.
Just hoping you don't drown.
Yeah.
And, like you said, trying to keep your head above water.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like this, at least for me, and I think you might understand this a little bit, there's kind of this isolation that happens when you're dealing with all of these things and you're going to try to take care of this over here and take care of this over here.
Around people all the time, but you still kind of pull inward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, for me, it was, I had people around me up until I was sick, and nobody wanted to be around me. And
we were like, all right, call me if you need something, but I'm not coming over. Sorry.
Yeah. But there was people around me, but, some of them have even walked similar paths, and they knew what I was going through, but they weren't walking it with me. And, like, the people that, like my husband that I usually can depend on, hey, I can't do the 14-year-old right now. I can't grade her school. I can't. You got to do some of this. Well, he was gone. Right. He was working 12 hours, 14, 16 hours a day with all these snowstorms that came through.
Like every other day we had a snowstorm. I was like, what in the world's happening?
And I'm sitting there, trying to drive on the days it's not snowing. Yeah. And so I was gone when he would be home. And then when, it would snow, I couldn't leave. And I'm trying to catch up on everything, laundry and all, the school and he would be gone. Right. And so I don't think we even saw each other, but coming and going for about a month and a half. Yep. Yeah, about a month and a half.
That's hard.
And when all this was going on, he wasn't able to really be there to walk me through it or to even be with me in it. Right. So, yeah, I wasn't used to that. I've gotten kind of used to him being by my side. So
right, like as a spouse does.
Yeah, and usually in the winter when he does get this crazy busy schedule, nobody goes anywhere. We don't have a whole lot of crisis because nobody can go anywhere.
Nobody's going anywhere. No one can get hurt.
Right. But my family chose this year to not do that.
They're like, 2022 is going to be it for us. So we're just all going to go for it.
Yeah. It wasn't fun, but that's all right. God, I learned a lot.
Yeah. What was the process like for you after that service? Because obviously I was there and I kind of saw the Lord start kind of digging you out of that.
Yeah, I actually kind of got a little angry after I left, and the next I went home, and the next day I was kind of frustrated, angry that I had allowed everything that had happened, that was out of my control to get to me so deeply. Yeah, but I'm not going to sit there and feel guilty about it because, these are people I love. Yeah. And I'm trying to do my best for them. Right. Other loved ones, my sisters were trying to help my mom at the same time to the point that they both ended up sick. Mm-hmm. We were all three sick at the same time because we were just been going so much.
Yeah. Going hard.
Yeah. And it was, I guess I look at it as I got mad that, I didn't see it sooner. Yeah. And I'm still not 100% sure what I could have changed. Right. Considering the circumstances, but except for maybe the realization that I was letting it get to me in a way I shouldn't have.
In a really, almost like this deeply rooted way.
Yeah.
And God was like, we're going to take that out and we're going to throw that root out.
Well, and it brought up a lot of things that, I think God wanted me to deal with, but it brought up things that when a parent has a stroke, they're not able to control necessarily, or they, if they've had other issues in the past with their emotions or their, how they act, they can't control that as well once they've had a stroke.
No. Any kind of mental stuff that happens, whether it be a stroke or dementia or anything like that, there is parts of emotions and like communications that are no longer, absolutely no longer in their control. Yeah.
And it brought up things that, I thought I had dealt with, that, my relationship with my mom and things that I thought were buried because, she had been different for a while and then she wasn't because of the stroke. And, or maybe because, her health is declining or what. Right. And it was, then I had to re-deal with it. And it was on a deeper level of how do I can't react the way I did before.
It was no longer like 10 years ago surface level. Right. This was deeper, and you're a different person now too. Yeah. And you're in a different place in your relationship with God, so that changes everything.
Yeah. But I think it had to be dealt with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's stuff that has to be dealt with from your past, and you may think you deal with it, and then it comes back later, and you're like, "But God, I did this already. I dealt with this already. This is
I surrendered it to you.
Yeah, this is in the past, and all is well." And God said, "But no, not really, because it's still affecting where I want you to go."
Right, like I want you to come here with me, but we can't get there until we deal with this. Yeah, and then I'm like, are you sure? You sure we can't just like go there anyway?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of, it wasn't just so much the going, the busyness, the stress, but I was dealing with somebody who was also not functioning well. Yep. It's easy from an outside perspective. Maybe you look at someone and you're like, well, you just need to do this or that. But when it's when it's someone you love, when it's your family, when it's, someone you care about, someone that, want them to not be lashing out at you because it hurts on a different level.
Oh, a completely different level, especially when, like, they can't control it. Every filter that they maybe had at any point in their life is now gone. Right. And I do this thing where I prepare for conversations before I have them, like podcast or not. I'm kind of like, okay, well, if they say this, maybe I'll try. Maybe I'll say that. It's like a weird,
I get it. I do it.
Okay. That doesn't work anymore because you don't know what's going to come out of their mouth.
Yeah. And then you find yourself saying things and you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Or that was really harsh, or, Yeah. But then, I also, for me, I'm kind of spunky. And so I've spent a long time working on healthy boundaries. Yeah. Because I didn't have them and wasn't raised to have them. Right. Really. And so now that I have them, when they start to get violated, I start to stand up, and I'm like, no.
Like, hey, and here's your line.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I had to ask myself, okay, I have this boundary of no, somebody's not going to act this way towards me. I'm not going to stand for it, but this is a different situation. So where's the boundary now? I can't let them treat me in one way, but by the same token, they just had a stroke and their whole life is tore apart, and they're in a strange environment with people they don't know.
They're scared.
And they're scared and they're mad and they're, And so then I had to rethink things.
What does this boundary look like now? Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's part of, my mind was always going 100 miles an hour.
I understand that part.
100 miles an hour, and I would pray about it, and I would think I had a grasp on it, and then I would get into it and get in the situation, and I'd be like, no, forget this. This isn't working.
That happens to me too. I'm like, okay, Jesus, you are holy, and I can be holy too. And so then I would walk into the situation, I'd be like, I think I left my holiness in the car. Hold on a second.
Holiness means set apart. I need to go set myself apart. Like, give myself a timeout.
There you go.
I can't.
I'm going to put myself in the corner. I'll be right back.
Yeah. There was many times of, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Well, you can use the one in this room. No, I'm going to go to the bathroom way down the hall.
Oh, I've done that too. I'm like, no, I'm just going to take a walk. Just give me a second.
Excuse me while I dig out my mask, because I'm in the hospital and I have to put my mask on outside the room, and I've got to go and take a walk for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I just need 5 minutes.
Yeah, that happened quite often.
Yeah. Boundaries are important. And kind of similar to you, I wasn't necessarily raised in kind of being shown boundaries, whether they were healthy or unhealthy, you know, because there's healthy boundaries and then there's like, that doesn't even make any sense, boundaries.
Right.
You know.
Well, there's boundaries and then there's walls.
Right. Yeah, because like a boundary is kind of like you take a piece of chalk and you draw a line. And a wall, like,
yeah,
nobody's
getting across.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's no connection.
Right.
When you have those walls up.
It's there's a lot of hard lessons in learning boundaries when you didn't have them.
Oh yeah, because it's a whole rewiring.
Mm-hmm. And it's a whole reestablishing relationships that were unhealthy.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not a healthy relationship. If somebody was used to you not having boundaries,
right,
they're not going to appreciate them when you do.
All of a sudden you're like, hey, well, this is kind of
where
things
decided,
need to be.
You know, through prayer and time with God, that this isn't healthy and this isn't okay, and they're mad.
They're like, who do you think you are?
On the other hand, sometimes it's, I've set this boundary. This is how it has to be for me.
Yep.
Because this is, you know, this is not a healthy relationship.
Right.
And I want it to be a healthy one.
Yeah.
And sometimes, okay. And sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it never happens.
Right.
And I can't say that I didn't lose some relationships through the years. I did.
Right.
I can't say God hasn't restored some. And they'd look very different than they did when my boundaries were not healthy. Right.
So as far as boundaries go, and as far as joy that isn't based on circumstances, what is that boundary? You know, not necessarily look like as far as like black and white, but like how's the Lord been walking you through that?
Day by day.
Yeah. Moment by moment.
Sometimes moment by moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not taking things personally. When somebody is, when you're dealing with people who are sick, or you're dealing, like my mom with the stroke, it's not taking personally the things that she says or does, because I can't. If I do, it will tear me apart, and she's not thinking clearly.
Right.
It's also making sure that I have the boundary of, well, I'm spending this time with God, and I'm going to, I know you need this from the store, or I know you, and I will get it within a day or two, but I've got a service tonight and I'm going to be there because my time with God is important.
That's top priority.
Yeah. My time in the morning with God is important.
Yes.
And I've even had to say, my daughter's education has suffered enough these last 2 months, and I have to put it as a priority because, I have to know where she is and that she's ready to move on.
Right.
And we've missed a lot of days because, I can't be there, and, she's, hey, go to your sister's, go, because if it's going to be a whole day thing, or I don't know, we have to make sure that there is some sort of stability, not just for me, but for her.
Absolutely.
Now my husband's, it's slowly warming up. I say that as it was sleeting earlier.
I know, right?
It's slowly warming up, so he's home more, so he can, kind of step in and help here and there, which, kind of brings us back to having that stability and a routine. And, I mean, yes, there's things I'm going to have to do, and I know that, all of this is kind of in God's hand, and things could go wrong again.
Yep.
And I've had to say, okay, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. Yeah. I can't make everybody be okay.
No. Right. And that's a boundary in itself.
Yeah.
Like we have boundaries with people, but there's also kind of like this, I have to have boundaries with myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I can just start spiraling and being like, okay, well, I need to figure out every single situation that could possibly happen and the 5 things I'm going to do to fix each situation.
And it's not, it doesn't happen.
And it doesn't happen, and it steals my peace. Yeah. And it steals my joy.
Through the years, I've learned that, I can't change people. I can't fix people. I think there's a difference between changing people, fixing people, and just trying to be there for them in a crisis. I can't change them. I can't fix them. I can't even really change or fix myself. All I can do is give myself over.
Wow.
Give myself over to God. Let him do what needs to be done. Yeah. And when he tells me, do it. Yeah. And I can't say I'm always great at it. Sometimes I argue with him, and I always lose the argument, but, But, the great thing about all of this, if there's upsides, other than the wonderful lessons God has had for me, is that I didn't make any New Year's resolutions because who had time, so I didn't fail at any of them.
Who's got the time for these? I love it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh yeah. No, I didn't fail a single New Year's resolution.
Look at you go.
Yeah.
You're slaying it. You are slaying the scene. I love it. So what does joy look like now? Because joy looks different in different seasons, as you know. But
I think for now, right now, there's a peace.
Yeah.
That, as crazy as everything feels some days, and it still has crazy days, there's a peace that I kind of had lost when I was stressed and worried, and even though I'm worried and I'm praying, okay, God, you got to take this, I'm still worried, when it's your daughter, when it's your mom.
Absolutely.
When, you're like, okay.
When it's your people.
You still have a fear of, but what if this goes wrong? And I've had enough.
That's normal. That's human.
I've had enough things that have gone wrong.
Yep.
Where I've seen bad consequences of medical decisions and stuff in my family that, obviously you're like, God, please protect against this. God, help, please, Jesus, be with the surgeons in this, third surgery. And, it's, but there's kind of a peace right now.
Yeah.
That's helped me. Last night when I got up to teach it, the first couple of weeks that I was teaching, or at least the first week, I was kind of stressed still trying to deal with a lot. And I totally even studied the wrong lesson. And I did, because I thought we were on Joseph that week, and I like Joseph, so I immediately jumped in it and didn't check it. And then,
when did you figure it out though?
When I got to the church, my pastor's wife is putting the pictures up on the wall for kids' church, and we're all studying the same things roughly. It's just different levels. Oh, and she's putting the pictures up, and I'm like, wait,
you're like, Jane, what are you doing?
Jacob and Esau. We're on Joseph. And she goes, no, we're on Jacob and Esau. And I'm like, oh no. And so luckily it's kind of, the questions aren't answered, but a lot of it's, scripted in the verses and this stuff. Right. And so I kind of rushed through real quick to, peruse it. Even, the story, but you still want, because this goes into like personal questions. They want people to, discussing.
Right. Like little lesson, open discussion. Like,
right. Yeah. About how it applies to today.
Yes.
So I got through that night, and I was still a little stressed going, I can't believe I studied the wrong lesson.
That's so funny.
And then, that tells you where my mind's still a little cluttered.
Yeah, 1,000,000 miles an hour. I get it.
And then by the next week, I got up, and I ended up teaching way past time to end, which was funny. And people were talking, we were discussing, and once it gets going, you're like, yes.
Oh, yeah. You're like,
and then last night, I was like, yep, we're going good. I got it.
That's so
cool. I'm back to where I'm supposed to be instead of
That's
studying
so
the wrong
cool.
lesson.
That's so cool. I love, I know that was like a half joke, but like when you've kind of been in the fire for a bit, and then, you get refined, you deal with the stuff, and Jesus is like, all right, let's go. And you kind of look back, you're kind of like, I'm okay.
I'm okay.
I'm okay now. I'm like, oh, man. Like,
Yes, he definitely walks me through.
Oh, yeah.
And the fire isn't a fun place to be.
No.
But what comes later after the fire often is kind of nice.
Yeah. Ooh, put that on a t-shirt. Man.
Because you've gone through the fire of the circumstances of whatever's gone on. And for me, it was everything at once. And that I've noticed that seems to be a pattern. When Satan comes at me, he doesn't just do little things. He throws everything he can at me.
All of it.
And it makes me wonder, okay, what is he trying to stop? Yeah. What is he trying to stop? And
what's God about to do?
Yeah.
That he's trying to get in the way of.
Right. And so I walk through, and I've learned how to try and just cling to him and walk through with him and keep my focus on him as best I can.
Like a little koala.
But but there are times where, I still get tired. I get weary. And it's not that I don't want to take the time to be with him. It's that like literally for 5-6 weeks, I couldn't.
There wasn't wiggle room anywhere.
No, there was no wiggle room.
There was hospitals and doctors and figuring out
specialists and neurologists and surgeons and
caseworkers and social workers and dealing with those people, which is a whole other side of medical that nobody wants to deal with.
Yeah, and it was I'm thankful my sisters were able to step in as much as they could, but they have lives too.
Right.
One sister has 3 children at home, and one of them special needs, and my other sister is got her son, and she works full time, and we somehow managed to juggle it, but it literally made all 3 of us sick. Yeah. Physically, and we probably all had close to the same thing, considering we were together trying to figure it all out.
Exactly. Exactly.
And actually, it sounds horrible to say this, but hear me out. About the 3rd week in the rehab center at the nursing home, my mom got COVID. And of course, we were all kind of fearful. No, she's got COVID.
Right.
How severe is it going to be?
I remember when you told me, I was like, oh.
Yeah. But it gave me, within a couple of days, when we realized she's not sick, really. She's got barely any symptoms. Right. Yeah. She's tested positive, but she's not symptomatic at all. No. And for somebody who had a stroke and has all these other shot. Who has all these other health issues, and you're like, she's like, grace of God, she's pretty much asymptomatic. I think she ran a fever for a day. Had a bit of a cough, but she's kind of had a cough for a long time anyway, so it wasn't overly anything.
It was kind of like, she's had that, so we're not going to stress.
Yeah, and nobody could really go in there because they automatic, 10-day.
Automatic quarantine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I kind of, we could call her and we could talk to her and we could text her and FaceTime her, but it gave us all a chance to breathe. And then, I didn't want her isolated, but literally there was nothing we could do.
Nothing. And this sounds weird because, I know you never want anybody to be
sick. No,
you
don't want her. I didn't want her to get COVID, but at least, she got COVID, but she got it and she was pretty much asymptomatic, and now she's had it, and,
don't have to worry about it for a while.
Right. She's built up some immunity to it. And
natural immunity, thank God.
And I know, the side effects of the vaccine. We were worried that with her health issues and all the stuff, that could have been, an issue.
Yeah.
And God took care of it, at least for now.
Right, exactly.
He's took care of it. So now she's, we know that she's at least got some immunities going on. Yeah. And that she's, and she did it.
And that's a relief in itself, knowing that there's some immunity in her system naturally.
Right.
Of just like, okay, I don't have to panic about this.
Right. And, it gave us a bit of a break.
Yeah.
From at least the constant running for a few days.
Right. And you need that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she was, still about 45 minutes away.
Right.
So, getting to her, getting home, it was you're talking about an hour and a half just in travel time.
Just of travel.
And that's not 2-3 hours visiting with her, taking her what she needs.
Talking to whoever you need to talk to that day.
Yeah.
And making decisions and figuring out whatever else.
Yep. And
your drive down there's that mental preparation, right? And then your drive home's a debrief of just
decompressing from whatever news the doctor had or whatever situation had arisen, or was it a good day or a bad day? Was there complications? And
what's different today versus yesterday?
Yeah. And it wasn't just my mom, because my daughter was also in the hospital at the same time and going through her own health issues. Yep. And I felt like I couldn't really help her.
Yeah.
I couldn't, I literally went in and signed in at the hospital, and I said, I'm here to see this person, but this person is also here and I need to see her too. Do I need 2 passes?
One on each side.
and they're like, no, we will work it out.
They're like, okay, thanks.
Because, they're pretty strict about visitors.
They are.
Right. And, so I was able to, okay, Mom, I'm going to go down the hall and see your granddaughter. Right. And then, okay, I'm going to go back to Grandma now, and was able to, bounce around and, occasionally.
Right.
But, yeah, it still was complicated.
Something that the Lord's that he's kind of brought to my attention probably within the past week. I've been in similar situations as all of that for a majority of my life, as you know. But the Lord brought to my attention that I take on the responsibility.
Yeah.
And I make all of it my problem, which there's things for me to deal with, but there's a boundary there.
Yeah.
That the Lord's trying to show me of there's things that we can do. Yeah, there's things that you maybe need to take care of, but this isn't for you to carry on your back.
Yeah. And I think that comes to you had to.
Yeah.
When you were younger, you kind of had to.
Right.
And it was the same way, for me as a kid and going through stuff, I had to.
Right.
It was a single mom.
Here's your choice.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's either you take over when she can't function right or it doesn't get done.
Exactly.
And you kind of take on a parent role as a child, and you just continue that into, every area of your life.
Like, I love doing things for people. I love taking care of people. That's partially how I show love to people. It's like I take care of things. But there's a boundary that I have to have for myself of, if you cannot do something, it is okay.
I came to that realization, but it's not something that I can get other people always to understand.
Right.
My mom has mental illness.
Right.
And it's pretty much been untreated. And she doesn't see it. Mm-hmm. It's depression for her. She doesn't understand that this is, had ramifications.
Right.
That it set up
that's her normal.
Yeah. That it set up patterns in her kids and in her family, and that,
Absolutely.
For a long time caused some major issues. And it comes down to where I can't change her, I can't fix it. She has to make the decision that she's going to fix it, that she's going to, seek whatever treatment, get whatever counseling, do what she needs to do. And if she doesn't, I can't fix that. When I see somebody trying to do their best to do better, like with Tasha, 4 surgeries in 2 months. She, can't work at the moment because she literally cannot put any weight on her foot. And she's doing everything possible to heal. And she is healing. I mean, we're getting praise reports, and it's doing so much better. But when I see she's trying and she's working really hard to do everything possible to, keep her, she's a type 1 diabetic. And we're getting praise reports at how well it's healing. We got one yesterday.
I know.
And
I was like in tears.
Yeah, the last 2-3 times I've taken her to the surgeon so he can, check the wound, clean the wound. He's like, yeah, this looks great. This is getting better. This looks great. And so when I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to help somebody who's fighting for themselves.
Right, yeah.
Who's, determined that they are going to have their life and live it with joy.
Yeah.
Live it with, fully for God, and live it fully in, give to others and be full of life, full of everything God has for them, ready to, feed into other people's lives,
Yeah.
I'll bend over backwards.
Yeah.
But I struggle with people who are just, they're angry and they're bitter and they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it, and then they make it feel like it's your fault.
Right.
Because
it's like, I want to help you, but there's only so much I can do.
Yeah.
Right.
It's nobody did this, or I needed this done. And as if, I don't have a child at home and a husband and a full plate. And, I feel like if, God help me, I want to be humble about this, because there are people who need help. They don't get it. Mm-hmm. But I think there's sometimes people can do stuff, even if it's changed their mind, change how they think about things,
change perspective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, again, when you're in a fire, it's hard to see clearly.
I'm like, look, there's smoke, there's flame. I just got burnt over there in that corner. Yeah. So whatever.
But if you've lived your whole life in a fire,
oh yeah,
then how much of them have you set yourself? Is it really Satan that's put you through the fire, or have you set some of it yourself? Mm-hmm. And are you stoking the flames, or are you trying? Because I see a lot of that.
Oh yeah.
A lot of stoking the flames. Hey, let's be angry and pick a fight today for the person who's spent a bunch of money and time trying to help me.
Right, and it's, and I'm just speaking from like my own experience and even my own personal stuff. Of some days it's a lot easier for me to just sit and be angry and be upset.
It would be totally easy.
It's so much easier because it takes no effort from me.
Yeah.
To just sit in it. Sit in the mud.
Let's wallow in the pity.
Exactly. Misery likes its company.
Yeah. As sad as it sounds, one of the greatest lessons that I ever got from watching all the Joyce Meyer I did when I was younger is you can be pitiful or you can be powerful. You can't be both.
Wow.
And, the simple fact is if you're going to wallow in self-pity, and there's times where we're down and we're struggling and we need,
hey, I need 5 minutes.
I needed my pastor and my brother in Christ and you to confront me and to set me right. I need people who are willing to confront me in Christ, not just pick a fight. But
right, not just like, hey, I don't like how you're acting because you're rude. No. Like, hey, God has stuff for you, and you can't do it from here.
And this is not you. This is not what God has for you, and this has gotten to you, and this needs to go.
Right, like we're gonna get you out of the mud. We're gonna keep going.
You need people who love you enough to confront you with truth. Mm-hmm. But you can't just live. It would be so simple to just live angry and depressed and mad and
right, and
feeling sorry for myself for all the things that are I look at my oldest 2 daughters, type 1 diabetics. They fought so many health battles.
Yep.
Both of them have nearly died more than once.
Right, multiple times.
I mean, I've watched my oldest get lifelined. I've watched my second one on a ventilator. Begging in an ICU room, God, please don't take them from me. I'm not ready. I need them. And they are strong, loving, spirit-filled, spunky people.
Yes, they are.
And they keep having to go through these battles with their health. But everybody's watching them. And maybe they don't see it, but everybody's watching them and watching how they're going through these things that they don't know how anybody else could get through. Right. And they're watching them go through and still love Jesus. Still serve him.
And not just say, okay,
I worship and praise and sing and
everything that they have.
With everything they have. And, if I don't have those exact health issues, I have a few, but, I don't have those exact health issues. Right. And yet I watch the warriors my daughters have become.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's how God wants his children to be. He wants his sons and daughters. He didn't raise us to be pitiful, sorry, weak. He raised us to be strong, and his spirit is supposed to empower us.
Ooh.
And when we cave into, woe is me, and we choose it as a mindset to live, I'm not saying there aren't biological reasons for depression. There are.
Yes,
go get help.
Please
go get treated. Go, if you need meds, take them. I'm not saying there aren't.
This is not, like, if you need meds, take them.
There are, my daughters, like I said, they're both type 1 diabetics. If they don't take their insulin, they die. That's a hormone. So is serotonin.
Yep.
If you're not producing enough of the right chemicals in your brain, get help.
Yep.
Take the meds.
Right. Because
there's no condemnation in taking something your body isn't making.
Right.
And if God heals you of that,
Heck
praise
yeah.
Jesus.
Heck yeah.
But until that day comes,
we'll substitute.
Yes. Don't live
No.
dying in your brain because, you can't function. Now, everybody's going to go through stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to bring them down. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to go through stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Where getting out of bed is the hardest thing in the world to do.
Yep.
And there's seasons that are so much harder. But there comes a time where you have to fight for the life God has for you. Mm-hmm. And Satan doesn't want you to fight. So he's going to throw everything at you to keep you from fighting for what God has for you. And I watch my daughters fight, and they are living lives that are walking testimonies, and sometimes it may not feel like it to them when they have another health issue or whatever.
Right.
But
another low blood sugar.
Yeah.
Yep.
My oldest was told she'd never be able to have kids because of her health. She has 2 little boys. My grandsons are beautiful.
Yes, they are.
Perfectly
healthy.
Tasha, she was told several times she won't live another month. She won't live another month. She leads worship.
Yes, she does.
My daughters are strong.
Yeah.
Even though they have to fight battles that aren't fair. Mm. And I don't want them to have to go home one day. But if that day comes, I know they will have lived their lives for Jesus with everything in them. Yeah. And they won't regret it. They're not going to regret. They won't have wasted it feeling like, oh, I've got this. It's so horrible, Right. And I know there are serious things that people have to deal with that lead to, depression and chemical imbalances. Yep. And I don't make light of any of it because I've walked some of it.
Same. Yes.
No, I don't make light of any of it.
No.
But if there is no hope in Jesus for even redemption of some of that and even a restoring of some of that, there's no hope in Jesus.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
If he can't walk you through the hard, he's not going to walk you through. And that's not what the word says. No. You know? The word says he's there. He's not going to leave us. He's not going to forsake us.
He's constant.
Yeah.
Even when it doesn't feel like it.
And he doesn't change. It's us who change.
Yeah.
And he's not pulling away. Usually we have.
Yep.
You know, he's right there, ready all the time.
Yeah. I've had instances where I'm like,
that doesn't mean he's not silent. There are times when
now
he's
that,
silent.
he's there. He's there. He's watching. Yeah, I am right here.
Yeah. And there will be tests, and there will be tests from him that feel like fire. And then there's Satan, who, you know, he just likes to see what he can, you know, whatever trouble he can cause. Who can he get to fall away? Who can he get to be angry at God? You know, oh, well, this person, they're so sick and they're blaming God for it, because why would God allow it?
Right.
They're not going to stick and they're not going to stand with me.
Right.
Or, you know, with God, they're going to come and, you know, get mad at him and not walk with him.
Right.
Not do what God has for them.
Right.
And then there's the people who are like, yeah, well, I love God anyway, and, you know, the worst that could happen is I die.
And even then I win.
Yeah. And then I'm with him for eternity. So
right.
I watch that with a lot of people that have faced terminal illnesses. And I've noticed that some of the people that have terminal illnesses, we had a lady recently pass in our church, and she fought cancer for 7-8 years.
Wow.
Stage 4.
Wowza.
Stage 4 cancer. Went through several rounds of chemo, went through surgeries, and stage 4 lung cancer over and over. And she 8 years. She was a walking testimony because the doctors couldn't figure it out.
They're like, how?
But she was always so joyful.
Wow.
Always so joyful. And I think she probably taught me more than anybody else about what it means to go through with Jesus.
Wow.
You know, there were times she didn't feel good.
Oh, of course.
You know, we were deathly afraid when we heard, she got COVID. And it was near the beginning when COVID was really severe, you know. How,
yeah, like everyone
and
was.
we're like, yeah, that's not good. She's got COVID. And yet, you know, she bounced back. It took her some time, but she bounced back. And, you know, I think her spirit made a huge difference, not just in how she lived and how she chose to live and serve. And she loved Jesus, and she knew he was ready for her. He was waiting for her. But in how everybody around her saw Jesus.
It's so important to have the right people in your circle.
Oh, yeah.
When you're in the fire.
Ones that will call you out with truth.
That, yeah. But I was just thinking of how much of a difference it makes when you're surrounded by people who love Jesus.
Yeah.
You're in the fire, and maybe they can't get in the house and be in the fire with you because it's yours to deal with.
Yep.
But when you're surrounded by people who love Jesus, who can still speak truth.
Yeah.
Even when you're like, okay, I have no idea what's happening. I don't know where God is. And they're like, well, actually, God says he's right here with you because his word says so. And we're going to keep going because he says so.
Yeah.
And because God has the final word. Nothing else does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I don't care if Satan's in a arguing match with God. God has the final word.
Yeah. We say that, but when you walk it, you have to believe it.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're in the midst of that fire, you have to believe God has the final word.
Yeah.
Because
like, you have to believe it with your teeth gritted, tears. I don't care because I've been there.
Yeah, you have to believe it at the bedside of someone who the doctor's saying going to make it.
Yep.
Okay. And you have to accept, God, you have the final word.
And what you say goes.
What you say goes.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do when it's someone you love.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And I think it's also hard to do when it's your own, you know, issues of you have the final word, but I just lost my job, or you have the final word, but, you know, I just, you know, got this diagnosis. Thankfully, none of my diagnoses so far have been life-threatening.
Anybody who actually listens to this podcast, like, they know this and you know this, is the Lord's been bringing things to me within, like, the past couple of days. I'm like, oh, that's a kind of weird thought, whatever. And then God's like, oh, by the way. I fought for years to get a diagnosis because my body didn't work the way it was
Right.
supposed to. Like, I had irregular cycles, and that I thought that was normal.
Right.
I was like, okay, whatever. And people were like, wait, what? That's bad. Go get checked out. Like, I had hot flashes. I had constant pain, constant fatigue. I was a mess. And when I got my diagnosis, there was a relief, but there was also this heaviness that came with it. And I walked in that heaviness for a while. I still loved Jesus. I still served. I still did everything that I was supposed to do. But there was a heaviness on me that I thought it was just mine. I thought that was mine to carry.
Yeah.
I thought that was, everybody has a problem. Everybody has something to deal with. And I guess this is just my thing to deal with. And that's okay. You know, like, everybody's got something, whatever. But looking back now, and the Lord's still showing me these different things that happened before he healed me that I thought were just whatevers.
That weren't whatevers.
There weren't whatevers. Like, he was so purposeful in doing these little things
right
before I got healed that was lining me up with what his word was saying the entire time, was that diagnosis wasn't actually supposed to be mine.
Yeah.
And that's not what my body was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, because it doesn't, those kind of diagnoses, they don't, no illness or sickness is from God.
No. No, and I was going to be the sick girl. I was going to be the girl who couldn't control her hormones, anytime I went and got blood work, it was all worse.
Yeah.
Even though I was doing everything I was supposed to.
Yeah.
Specialists and doctors tell me, okay, well, your body doesn't work right. You're probably not going to have kids. It's worse now. Are you sure you're doing it right? I had to allow God to have the final word.
Yeah. And it's not, it goes against what the doctors are saying. So you're like, but
I got lab results. Like, my body doesn't work.
yeah.
I have symptoms that literally keep me from being able to play with my nephews, and then God's was like, actually, no. This is what I say, and we're done.
Yeah.
This is done. This is the boundary.
Yeah. And it's his timing, because I don't want anybody who's dealing with chronic illness or with, a diagnosis. I don't want anybody to think that, oh, well, I'm sick for lack of faith, or I'm sick because, no, it's seriously, you're sick. There's something you have to deal with. Maybe it's chronic and you have it for, years and years and years, and you don't understand why. But like with, I said with my older daughters, and people are watching them.
Yeah.
People are going to watch how you handle your illness.
Yep.
And the joy that you have, and the peace that you have, and where you find your hope. And even if God just healed you, and you never showed anything through this illness or learned anything from this illness about him,
what was it?
Then what was the point?
There was no point.
And so my girls, I know when they're dealing with it, they get frustrated, they get mad, they get tired of feeling sick when their blood sugars are being crazy for no reason, or because, the pump didn't, malfunction.
Right.
Or, and yet people are watching them, and just, they are watching God work through them. Mm-hmm. And when they realize they really have all this going on in their health, and that they're still
saying yes.
They're not angry. They're not bitter. They're not, they're like, no, I'm doing what Jesus told me to do, and I'll do it through this illness until he heals it.
Yep.
And I believe for my family, there's been promises laid out.
Yes, there has been.
Yeah. And I'm going to stand on them.
Yeah. We'll say conversation, I suppose, of being sick due to a lack of faith has a very, very, very special place in my heart, both for personal reasons, because I had people tell me that. I've had people tell my loved ones that.
Yeah.
And that's not from Jesus.
No.
Whatsoever.
No.
And so
Jesus, when he walked this earth, encountered a whole lot of people, and he healed a whole lot of people, but he did not heal everyone. Mm-hmm. And, he didn't touch every single person that he encountered and heal them. He healed who God told him to heal.
Exactly.
When God told him to heal. How many times had he maybe walked past the, blind Bartimaeus? Did he ever see him before? Did he ever see him in the street and not heal him then and wait, until perfect timing?
Yeah.
We don't get to control what God does when.
No.
And
it doesn't work that way.
Yes. Healing is wonderful and beautiful, and I believe God has plans for healing for people. Mm-hmm. But until that day, you keep your faith.
Yeah.
And you keep walking with him.
And you hold on tight.
Yeah.
And you keep going.
And I look at, my friend that passed from cancer, she wasn't healed. Mm-hmm. She prayed for it all the time. Yeah. People prayed for her all the time. Mm-hmm. She sustained for years longer than the doctors ever thought she could. But she eventually went home.
Right.
And, we didn't get the so-called miracle healing we wanted.
That we wanted.
Or even that she thought she wanted.
Right.
There's still things on this earth she wanted to see, people she wanted to see saved, loved ones that were not walking with God, and that she wanted to be here to be there for, to talk with them, to try and, but God's timing. And when he said, no, you're coming home, it was time.
Yeah.
And there was a peace about the fact that we know where she is.
Oh, yeah.
And so did he heal her? No. But did he heal you? Yes. Well, what was the difference?
Right.
It's, on him. It's his choice, his plan.
Right.
And, when we try and figure out his plan,
don't do it.
Yeah. We're not, if he says go pray for that person,
then I
strongly
suggest you go pray for that person.
Yes. And, you and I both know there's a bit of fear when you have been healed because you don't want to be wrong.
Yep.
You don't want to be wrong. There's consequences when you're wrong. For you and me both, there's consequences because if you're wrong, you're going to be sick.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for listening to part 1 of 2 of my time talking with Cathy. Part 2 will be posted very soon. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that notification bell so that you know when we post a new video. We are on Spotify and we're on Google Podcasts. We also have a Facebook, an Instagram, and a website. And we shall see you guys soon.